one dog. So, the 10th day of Christmas, 10 lords a leaping. What can that be referring to? Well, I checked online, and the first reference was to the 12 days of Christmas as a biblical code, and the 10th day of Christmas representing the 10 commandments. But no, that can't possibly be our 10 lords a leaping. And then I thought, well, let's have a little bit further. And there's a book by C.C. Benison, 10 Lords a Leaping. And in that book, a local vicar goes up in a plane, skydives, and literally takes a leap of faith. He leaps out of the plane, but sees on the way down something incredibly interesting, because two of the other skydivers are beginning to fight on the way down in freefall. And that is the beginning of a novel. But no, that can't possibly be our Lords a Leaping. No. Barristers' chambers. The Lords a Leaping must be the House of Lords, the highest court in the land. It must be that. But the House of Lords, as a court, as a full-time court, first came into being in 1876 in the Appellate Jurisdiction Act, and came to end in 2009 with the inception of the Supreme Court. And at that point, the Lords were unable to sit in the second chamber. So, is that our Lords a Leaping? Well, there are 12 justices, the last 12 Lords becoming the first 12 justices in the Supreme Court. But let us look a bit further, and I have. The present constitution of the Supreme Court has two ladies, Lady Arden and Lady Black, and 10 Lords. We have our 10 Lords. And where have they leapt in terms of planning law? Well, this year we've had 3 cases in the Supreme Court. The first is the case of Samuel Smith's. That was a case which clarified that Greenbelt policy in terms of looking at openness was open-textured, a matter of judgment rather than strict interpretation of policy. And the second case is a case called Dill and the Secretary of State, which made clear that you were entitled to look at the list and scrutinise it to the extent of arguing whether a building on the list was indeed a building. And it took the Supreme Court to rule that, because the inspector and the 2 lower tiers suggested otherwise. And then finally we had the Heathrow litigation, a really, really big case. And where did the law leap there? Well, interestingly, the government policy for these purposes was not to be looked at other than in a strict and formal sense. Government policy was the equivalent of the NPPF, but what it was not was a statement in Parliament. And so that was the way in which government policy was interpreted for the meaning, for the context of that case. And then the second element was that the Paris Agreement had been taken into account for the purposes of the Climate Change Act of 2008. So the law has leapt away from the Court of Appeal on 2 of those 3 cases. And it's been an interesting year from a planning law point of view. Anyway, all that remains to be said is Happy Christmas, have a prosperous and safe New Year.